but water's equally bad for metal, and so the bottom of the walls were rotten, and rotten being like they were gone. Walls were hanging from the ceiling and they were kind of just held in place. Sometimes it was just like the tile baseboards that were holding the wall from moving. So the original vision for that project, it's a project at a mall in Gilbert, Arizona. It had been it was an Asian food restaurant that they had three other locations, and they leased a space that was a Japanese food restaurant at the mall. And they wanted to do a really simple tenant improvement to make it theirs. They didn't want to put a bunch of time and money into it. Most of what was there was acceptable. Like the back of house was pretty much going to stay. The walk-in cooler was going to stay, stuff like that. And that's what the plans showed. The plans were pretty simple. It looked like a very, very easy job. We won the project, and then we went in and met with the owners for the first time on site to start construction. What they said was, this isn't what we want to build. We want to change it completely, which presents quite a few challenges. So basically they wanted to get rid of the drawings and build the project based on RFIs and changes and just field directives from them. So, what's interesting about that project is I don't think the vision for the space was ever documented on drawings. And so I don't even know what the original vision was. It's probably pretty close to what we ended up with, which was a far stretch from where we started from a drawing standpoint. Unique challenges on the project, aside from just change by change, trying to capture what the owners wanted and put it into place, was existing conditions in a space like that, especially a commercial restaurant where there's so much water and so much food and different things involved. It's metal stud framing, so it's not wood like you see in a home, it's metal. But water's equally bad for metal, and so the bottom of the walls were rotten, and rotten being like they were gone. So walls were hanging from the ceiling and they were kind of just held in place. Sometimes it was just like the tile baseboards that were holding the wall from moving, just grout essentially, and these things were hanging. So we found a lot of stuff like that. We found a lot of old installations that someone had done that didn't meet code, high voltage wiring running through the ceiling, and connections made outside of junction boxes that we had to take care of. Things with fire sprinkler that didn't make sense, and things with plumbing that didn't make sense and didn't work. A lot of stuff like that. That it was a pretty big uncovering of issues. And then one of the strange things was the owners had ordered a storefront assembly. We were changing the storefront out, and they had ordered one direct from China, and we were going to install it. And the thing came, and it was absolutely beautiful. But the issues we raised initially with it, and they were working on, and the owners were working really hard to get it, was getting the engineering for the storefront. So we needed engineering to show that it met wind load requirements and energy code requirements. And so they were working on that, and ultimately it came down to the end, or closer to the end, and I was telling them, like, we need this is how much time we have. If we don't get it, we need to move on. And ultimately, because of the timing lined up with the Chinese New Year, and the engineers in China took time off, they had to scrap this entire storefront assembly and buy an entirely different one. Unfortunately, we had a trade partner that was local that was able to source one very quickly for us without a ton of delay. It still resulted in delay to the project, but I think we really came through for them and helped them out in a way that was unlikely and would be difficult to do repeatedly. But because of a relationship, we called in a favor and they called in a favor, and we were able to make it happen. But that was definitely a challenge that, I'm not used to. The other thing is they were ordering some equipment that came from overseas as well, and this equipment would show up without UL labels, underwriting laboratory labels, and that's not the way we do things here. And I warned them that this might get called out by inspectors, and it certainly did. It was the Maricopa Health Department that called out a couple pieces of equipment that didn't have UL labels, and so they had purchased kitchen equipment that then they weren't able to use. There were a lot. There's learning moments on every job. One of the most interesting things about construction to me is everything's one-off. I think there's parts of the industry that aren't. You could do adaptive reuse of drawings where you take the same building and put it on multiple sites. You see that a lot, and people can relate to it in like production home building where it's the same house plan but it's a different site. That happens in the commercial space too. You see big corporations that will build the same coffee shop and the same restaurant over and over on different sites. But for the most part, stuff like this, it's the first time it's been built. Drawings are designed and drawn just for that project, and just for that specific space. And so, the whole thing is learning. Maybe the big one on this was when I realized at the onset and starting this thing that what they wanted wasn't what was in the drawings. I think we should have slowed down and said, let's capture what you actually want. I think that the way this transpired from design and into procurement before we came on board was trying to rush, trying to hurry. And every time we've ever tried to rush or try and hurry something, it ends up costing us time and costing us money and frustration. And I think that's what they experienced. Ultimately they got a great project, but taking a shortcut is usually the longest path. There's a saying somewhere along the lines, and I've seen that firsthand time and time again, and that was definitely the case on this. And I think they learned that as much as it was reiterated to us through the process of building. I think I'm most proud that we pulled off what they envisioned as quickly as we did. This was very challenging for such a small project that should have been so simple from the onset. But it's so hard. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and to us the pictures are the construction drawings that architects and engineers put together, and we effectively didn't have them. So we had to take descriptions and information and just communications that we got verbally from the client and try and wrap our head around what they actually wanted and how that needed to be built without the help of a thorough design. And the thing on this one too is, so they hired us and they wanted to scrap the design, but they also didn't retain the architect for construction administration services. And so anytime we had a question or we had a need, like we had there wasn't enough circuiting to support the kitchen equipment that they needed, it was tough to get an answer because we didn't have an architect that was already retained as part of the project to answer those questions. So I'm proud that we were able to take their vision and deal with what seemed like everything against us in the construction process. And then ultimately still maintain a relationship with the mall. That's a big landlord at that mall, and they were happy with us and understood what we were going through, and they were very supportive along the way, and I'm very happy about that. I would say let's redesign the project. Let's take some time. Let's pause for a little bit and redesign and really get on paper what you want. That would have fundamentally changed how that project went, instead of piecemealing it along the way. The problem with piecemealing things is, and it seems like pausing for 30 days or something at the very beginning would be slow, but there was times in the middle that we were waiting for 30 days for answers, because we would ask a question and it really needed design input, and so the owners had to go to the designers and get a change from them, an ad service change agreed to, and then the designers could work on it, and then they would get it to us. And time just goes on, and time in construction is super expensive. It's one of our biggest costs. So being on the job, having staff on the job, having all the general requirements, the dumpsters and the office space and all that, that's where a lot of our costs come in. And so it would have been better to hold off mobilization and hold off starting and really get on paper what the owners wanted, rather than start and kind of work through it, fumble through it.